And welcome back to another episode of the Book Chapter and Converse podcast. I am your host, Angelina McClinton, and I have my wonderful co-host back with us for another exciting episode. Last episode was amazing, and we got a chance to talk about some stuff that I know you guys really got some good knowledge out of. However, we did not really get to delve into the book like we wanted to. And I know that you were wanting to go back and talk about dealing with relationships and what happened to relationships. And we will. We will go back and talk about that on another episode. But today we are going back to this amazing book by Dr. John Townsend, Beyond Boundaries. And we are in chapter 2 where we technically left off, talking about trust. And we all know that trust is extremely important. Without trust, I mean, you can really just hang the relationship all the way up. But what Dr. Townsend actually informs us of the two types of trust. Like generally, I know for me, I really can't speak for my co-host, and y'all can chime in at any moment. But when I thought of trust, I just thought of trust as this one whole thing and never really broke it down into two. And he labels them relational trust and foundational. I'm sorry, not foundational trust, functional trust.
Yeah.
And so, thank you for functional trust. And functional trust, he says you feel that you can depend on another person's behaviors and their commitments, while your relational trust, it refers to how you are in relationships, how safe it is to trust another person with your vulnerabilities and your feelings. And as we discussed this, I had shared that I really didn't see it that way, and it made sense when you start breaking it down. And you can kind of, sad to say, pinpoint certain people. They do have good functional trust, or so and so has relational trust. And so I just thought that was really huge. And so either of you can chime in at any moment on what you thought about the different functional and relational trust.
I think he focused more on the damage of it all. I think it's easy to have functional trust because that's just more of commitment based. Just will you do what you say? But relational trust has more to do with the inner man and the inner person. Can I trust you with what I'm saying or what I'm feeling? And I just think um, it's easier in any kind of relationship to just be functional because if there's been any kind of damage, it's hard to repair that. And I don't know anybody who really knows the full steps. In chapter 2, he didn't really list any steps to repair trust because I think it's something you just have to choose. Vulnerability is a choice.
Yes.
I think it's just a choice that you make. You choose to make, e- even if you've been the victim of somebody damaging it or something damaging it. You just have to choose trust, just like you choose joy. Most emotions are something you choose, or most actions. If you're going to work at any relationship that you have, even in work, I think you have functional relationship. They can depend on you to come on time.
Yeah.
They can depend on you to do what you said you would do in your contract. Honor your commitment, so they trust you. Y'all are teachers, so that you know who can watch your class, who can't. Uh, but
True.
relational trust with those teachers is different. Y'all have those bonds to where we can say this about the principal, we can say this about the superintendent, we can say this about the gym coach we don't like, but we don't say it to everybody. When you get frustrated with the kids, I have met a teacher that's not frustrated, and I don't know if it's the kids or the system, but you know who you can say it to, and that's the relational trait. He said both. I think that's where relational trust comes in. If in the event somebody comes and you told Miss Carter something, and then the principal said, Miss McClinton, I hear you have now you don't trust Miss Carter relationally.
Right.
You still might trust her functionally, like, oh, Miss Carter she's gonna make the coffee every Monday, you know. she,
They
but
be banging too.
but relationally, you don't trust Miss Carter anymore, and that might not hurt you so much on the work end or occupation, but in a relationship where trust, relational trust is essential to the relationship, I I can't even function really. I can that's those people that, yeah, I'm still his friend, but
Hmm.
I'm still married to he or she, but you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just they're functioning in the functional trust, but with the relational trust, they're doing what he calls the ratio, the 1090. They're giving less so they don't have room to be damaged anymore. So they're giving 10% emotionally, but they don't want any room to be hurt again because we don't really like to feel that pain twice. And I just think it's a choice because I've done a lot of reading, but I haven't read anybody who just can give you the answer that you want to hear, even with forgiveness.
You know what answer I like to use? I like to use the answer of love.
That's broad.
Because I say that because I don't know, more and more people are leaving, and I know it may sound strange, but they're leaving love out of their relationship because it is the love that helps you to get over, to deal with, to conquer each other's flaws. So, like on page 34, let me just read this little passage here. On page 34, he says, sooner or later, the passage of time unwreaths the flaws or weaknesses of the people in a relationship. These flaws cause a rupture in functional trust. When someone lies, becomes irresponsible, or reveals a behavior or a secret that causes problems. Flaws and weaknesses causes a break in relational trust when the person becomes emotionally disconnected, controlling, critical, or self-absorbed. Love. Love conquers flaws. It takes work and it takes communication. Just like the love of the Lord, if we don't have a true sense of love for whomever it is, it could be, of course, your spouse, right? But then there are those people who we work with, whom we love, that if they break that, we will be truly hurt, right? So even those work relationships, certain ones of those are people whom we love, right? But it's the love of a person that helps you to conquer their flaws and helps you to be able to heal from the hurt of what's been caused. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
People who don't have that love connection will quickly, easily throw their relationships to the wind, right? In a sense. And of course, we're not talking in all cases, but for let me speak for myself. Um, in the process of the discovering of my husband and us learning each other over these past 20 years, something new is coming up any given day,
Oh yes.
you know, and also because we're changing, right? We change, we grow. And so there are things that, you know, you'd be like, ooh, that work on my nerves. You know, like, ooh, that work on my nerves bad. But it's not something that I'm ready to throw it to the wind because my love for you is more than that. Even when it's something that is like, we're talking about deal breakers, you know, when it's the deal breaker, when your love is casual, that deal breaker breaks you. When you're not there for the love of that person or that person's love for you, those casual things, those which are not really casual, like some of them, like we say, these harsh offenses of, being lied to, this and the other, those people throw those things to the wind in a hurry. And I'm not even talking about people who are single, I'm talking about married people. We'll throw those things to the wind in a second. But it takes the work. It takes work. It takes communication. And it takes love.
Well, love is that's a tough one because we struggle with that anyway, which was why the world is the way the world is.
Well, Tina said, "What's love got to do with it?" Okay.
She's everything.
Tina,
It got everything to do with it.
It's got everything to do
What
with
you
it.
say?
What's love? Oh, what?
What's love?
Listen, but I think it's easier to apply love when you're talking about functional trust because, as Nathan said earlier, that's just dealing with surface stuff. Can I trust you to be where you're supposed to be?
Right.
Can I trust you? But of course, I think functional trust is the beginning. That's the beginning. If
Of
I
the
can trust you
relationship.
to be where you say you're going to be when you say you're going to be there, I can trust that you, like we were talking about earlier, to pick up my prescription and I ask you to pick it up on your way home, or
Right.
to pick up the kids, or to stop by the store and grab groceries. If I can trust you with those things, then I can begin to move into relational trust. Because how can I trust you with my deepest, darkest secrets, but you can't even pick up the food on the way home, or
I'm
you
trusting
can't?
you with my heart.
Right. But before I do that, let me see if I can trust you to be on time. Let me
But what
see if I
happens when
can.
they damage your heart?
Well, that's
Because
and
you
even though,
can
like you
trust
said,
them to pick up the prescription, but what happens when you voice something and they say, "Boy, you need to man up"?
and that's when you have to be like, you know what?
Was that man up from a place of love? Or was
Right.
that man
You
up
have to. I mean,
from
you have to
or
ask
was that
that.
But I'm
man up
saying
from
you can tell Ford, he always complaining. He always down. He always depressed. And that same person that picked up your prescription won't hear your heart.
True.
So they broke.
But then
Now what you're going to say is pick up my prescription, but that's it. I ain't gonna tell you nothing else.
right, because at that
I
point you
can't
have to
talk to her.
determine,
Can't
you
talk to
know,
him.
but then at that point,
sometimes people don't have the capacity to hear you.
right, do you want to do it or not? Like we say, it's a
So I can
choice.
trust you functionally,
Mhm.
but I may give you, like we had talked about earlier, I may give you just a little bit to see where I can go with you. Because everybody, I mean, even I mean, that's why you have to be careful who you marry. You gotta be careful who you get in relationships with, because some people don't have the capacity to handle what's on the inside of you. I mean, again, that's why we have to be prayerful about the connections that we make, because every connection is not a God connection. So we have to be prayerful in that. Lord, can I trust this person? And of course, I think, Nate, you said it earlier, it is vulnerable. It's going to be a gamble because you just don't know. But I think the moment that you find out, that's when you can determine how you can categorize this person. I have a functional trust with this individual, but not a relational one. Or I can have a relational trust with this person, but I wouldn't trust them to take care of my dog, because they just don't. They, like you said, the teachers, you don't trust to watch your class, because that one just, she just a little too loose. She just all over the place. But now, girl, keep a secret. When you got something that you need to get off your chest or something you need to talk about, she there. She gonna give you some good advice. She gonna pray with you. She gonna cover you. But as far as her stopping by to get the lunch, no, because no more, she always late. She's not dependable in that respect. But in a relational respect, we good. And but I think we discussed in marriages, you have to have both. You do have to have the
You gotta have
functional.
both,
I have
yeah.
to be able to trust my spouse to do things, but then I also have to be able to trust them to be able to hear what's in my heart and have the capacity to handle that. So, some people are gonna be in that functional category, some people are gonna be in that relational category. Then you're gonna have people that's gonna be able to encompass both.
But I think that's when people start like quiet quitting on their relationship. Because we talk about quiet quitting on the job.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
already done that. But because 9 times out of 10, I have Miss Carter, I done quiet quit. But
Angie.
but that's because I don't trust them relationally. There's been some things that have taken place, but I need to pay for this roof over my head so I can function
Right.
in it. But I've disconnected, and that's one of the things that the book talks about when the relational, because it was letting us know that a break in functional trust, you can still make it. And I think that's why, how we always talk about, why won't she leave him, or why won't he leave her? Because you can't really trust him with certain things. But it's some people who you can't trust them to pick the kids up on time or drop the stuff off, at the cleaners or whatever. But they do genuinely love you and care about your heart. So I can bare my soul to you and I know it's safe. And a lot of people stay in some of these relationships, not all of them, but some of them, because I know I'm emotionally safe with you, but I can't trust you functionally to do some stuff. And I think sometimes that's where, like, they used to say, the good girls always want the thugs. Some of them thugs, they be like sweet at the heart and they'll take care of your heart, but other stuff I can't count on you. So I think the reason you can't do it the other way
You
around.
dated the thug?
Who?
You was dating thugs?
I did. I mean, he wasn't it was about two of them. It was about two of
You
them.
had your two thugs?
Two thugs. I mean,
You
one
got,
thought
you
he
got it out of
was.
the system.
That's
One
old
thought
school.
he
You know,
was
you
a
call somebody
thug,
a
and the
thug,
other
you know.
thug.
He's a thug.
Sometimes that thug is a
hoodlum.
term of endearment in a
You
sense
said a
that
hoodlum.
that just means he can handle things.
Oh no, Miss Carter, he was a thug.
Oh, okay. I was trying to help. Okay.
He's
Don't
a
hit me.
thug.
Don't hit
Though.
me. It was in my past, Miss Carter. I'm delivered from that.
I
But
understand. Trust me. But I'm just trying
A
to say,
thug.
sometimes calling my thug ain't really all that bad.
now, Miss Carter, you gonna send us down another rabbit hole. But
A thug or street, like a street dude. So he was a thug.
He had street knowledge. He
now
just-
that's
What's
a
a
different
thug?
category. Because I had one with some serious street knowledge, but I had a thug. Like, he claimed to be a killer, and I believed it.
Oh, she almost spit up.
I believed him.
I ain't no killer with no
And
Nevertheless,
there's a difference between a thug and a street killer now.
So he was like you had a kingpin.
no, he wasn't no kingpin.
You don't know the king. You don't know no kingpins. Huh?
I
He
don't
had
know
no money.
kingpin.
Yeah.
And now he ain't had no money.
He said, "Now he was no
He
kingpin."
was a thug.
Yeah.
Y'all, but what I'm trying to,
That's your
Nothing but
brother.
a thug.
y'all make me sick.
That's Nate.
I'm just trying to see
You say he had no money. Oh, he was a thug.
I was in my 20s. Give me a pass.
dating thugs.
Oh, you get a pass. This is
I was in my 20s. Give me a pass.
You know better.
Okay.
You do better.
But what I was saying was, I think that's where some of that comes in at, because I can see how people can stay in something because relationally, I feel safe. I just know that I can't trust you to pay these bills on time. So let me handle that.
Yeah.
Versus I can trust you if I tell you one of my, deepest, darkest secrets, or when I'm vulnerable, I can lay it out and you don't make me feel, less than, which is why I say when Nathan made the comment, so what happens for when she says, well, I need you to man up. If I get too many man ups at the wrong time, or, you need to pull your big girl draws and come on, like,
Right.
once I hear that one too many times, I am probably going to quiet quit, because he calls it just withdrawing.
Right.
And so he says you become careful instead of, careless, because I think we talked about it last time, but when you feel like you're in a relationship in which you can trust people, you're not fearful. So you lay it all out. You are vulnerable and you share because I'm safe with you. But when I start to not feel safe, then I do start to cover up things and hide things because I let it out. And then you hit me with something that I didn't need at the time. So now I know I can't tell you this. And so I slowly but surely start to hide things from you because you let me know that I can't trust you. And when I can't do that, then the first thing he says, You are more reserved about discussing personal information. Well, we can't be in a relationship if I can't be personal with you. But if
That's what I was gonna say.
Right,
How
but
does that benefit
I was
you?
going to say, do you resolve to living like that, or do
but
you
some
go
people do.
They say that's when they say he's a good man,
But
Right.
she's a good woman,
he's a good
but
provider.
yeah,
Functional.
he's a good man, but
So,
they're
do
searching
you
for
not love
something
that
else.
person enough to fix that situation, to
But
work
can
on
you
that
fix it? Because
situation?
it's relative on the person, isn't it? I mean, because they the one with the issue. If I can't tell you my personal business or I can't lay my heart out to you and we're in a relationship and I'm telling you what I need, I'm telling you what I require,
They
either
just
you're
cheat.
gonna do and you can't rise to that, then we might need to be making a
You
decision.
just cheat.
I mean, that's what most people do. That's what they end up
You
doing.
cheat. You
And
stay with your good man, and
he's a
then you get
provider.
whatever you need from your other man.
Oh,
I have somebody who provides and have somebody who can provide
Well,
emotionally.
you
There
know
you
what?
go.
And you know what? And that is what things have come to.
That's
That
why I
is
said
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you
it's
are.
come
But
to
guess
that.
what?
Why are we
That ain't right.
withdrawing when
That
we
ain't
could
right.
just depart?
Because I
You
can't.
the
I
dis-
can't. I can't even fathom that though.
it,
I can't. I
but
can't
I
even
think that's a
fathom
lot of
that.
people's story.
What, fathom
I'm gonna
cheating?
stay in this
I'm
for
like, especially if I'm in love with the person I'm with. If I can't even focus on trying for us to try to make for it to work, to adjust, to grow, to change, blah blah blah. This is what I need. This is what I need you to be. This is what you need me to be, blah blah blah. Because people grow and they change. But if we can't even remotely come to even trying that, then no, it's my thought is not I'm gonna stay with you, but I'm gonna cheat. That's not the thought.
But what if you're trying, but
and
the
they're
other
not.
person don't want to? Because sometimes that's the case. Like, I'm trying with you, but I
There's no
can't. It's like
effort.
I'm trying to can with you, but I can't. So then they do cheat.
Or it's just I'm not your friend no more. Or
We
like
just live in
why
a
do
house. We two
it's the
ships
same it's
passing
the
in the
same
night.
thing you said. I'm gonna quiet quit the job. Just quit the job. Well, you don't. You can go to another school. You can go to another warehouse. You can go to another department. You're staying there expecting them people to do something different that they're never going to do.
Actually, I'm not expecting them to do
And
anything
not
different.
you. I'm just saying in general.
So I
Most
know
of
them
us,
devils, so I'm gonna stay
Right.
down.
you go if there's no. I don't wait to get fired. Don't wait till somebody dies. Don't wait. It's some people if they waiting for you to die so they can move on.
No,
Move
they waiting to
on
get that so they
now.
can collect your insurance.
That,
They waiting to get that.
now this the break. Dating is different than covenant,
It's true.
and covenant is different than contract.
It is.
Some people are married in contract, so my
For sure.
insurance tied up in this,
Yeah.
the house tied up in this,
Mm-hmm.
the kids tied up in this. But covenant, God is tied up in this. So when Miss
Right.
Carter, when you speak of the love, God is love. Love. Even some people who think they're in love with you are not.
No.
You see
Some
what I'm
people just
saying?
not trying to honor their covenant.
They have a deep affection, or they have loyalty, or they have tenure, but they don't have love.
Come on,
Because you
tenure.
cannot have
Hence
any
my
love
point.
without God.
Love is the real. That's why I say love is the
But
real answer.
but I'm saying you're right. But what you're really saying is God is the real answer.
True.
So we have to be talking about people who are in
Covenant
godly
with God.
relationships, godly friendships, godly marriages. Because marriage
Right.
is a social construct now that it's not it's a godly concept, but the idea is from God. But now the social, like the Western world, their concept and idea is different.
Which is
So
why
they
it's
dilute it a little bit. So some people are married, they're in Western world marriages with a piece of holiness, because the idea is
Oh,
from
peace.
something that's got a little piece. Even
a touch.
is it Paul who says they have a form of godliness?
And deny the power thereof.
You can actually have a form of godliness and everything else not be.
Mhm.
So when you say the answer is love, you're speaking from a place where you surrendered to something that will allow you to love where it hurts you, that will allow you to choose trust even though it hurts, even though you're vulnerable. we'd have to be a discipleship podcast to get people to understand that. I think on this level, we have to get people to make the right decisions with discernment, because even God changed his mind. In the garden story is not, I always reference it because it's so deep. Everybody just, Adam had a job and this, and he put it. God was trying to see, I can give you dominion, I can give you the earth, I can make everything, and then on this day, this 6th day, breathe the breath of life into you.
Mm-hmm.
I provided everything for you.
Everything.
Now I want to see, can I trust you? I want to walk away and see what you will do. Will you touch this tree? Will you eat from it? I can offer you everything. What can I trust you with? And it broke his heart. So much so, he had to kick them out the garden so they wouldn't self-destruct. But even in Judges, the Bible said he turned his countenance on Israel because of idolatry. It hurt him to see Israel worshiping idol gods after he had brought them out of wilderness, after he was the vehicle when Pharaoh was chasing them, after he opened their eyes and said, y'all don't have to be slaves. I'm gonna send Moses back. We're gonna do this. We're gonna come out of, this land that's been promised you, you're gonna get this. And once you get it, the instruction was to drive out the people,
right?
And don't take anything that they left. When you get this land, somebody lives on it. The Bible said they chose wives in that land. That's why you get when Joshua said, "As for me and my house," when they were dividing the land, the inheritance, and Joshua said, "I choose this." Now you're gonna have to choose what you're gonna do, and they chose something different. When you flip the Judges, they choose something different, and it hurt God. It really hurt him so much. We can go. Let me go back to Genesis because I can stay there. The Bible says, right before the flood, he repented that he made, man. And God is saying to us, I can't trust him. I can't trust the fleshly man. So I'm going to wipe them out. Even God, in his wisdom, knew when to depart from something that initially he had trust in, but realized they won't do it. Because man has dominion, so he's not making you trust. I can make you, but I can't make you trust. Because people say, well, God knows everything. God knows my heart. He does not know if you're going to trust or not. He knows you will be tempted. That's why when Jesus comes, after he's baptized, he goes into the wilderness. And when he comes out of the wilderness, he's tempted. Jesus still has, in his flesh, still has to choose not to give in to temptation. Even on the cross, he still has to choose. God isn't, what God is saying is he's fully divine, but he's fully flesh. I have to let him choose. And that's why on the cross, even Jesus said, Father, forgive them. He said, not my will. In the garden, he's battling flesh. So flesh can it's hard to trust it, so much so God didn't. He realized I can't trust it, and it hurt me. I repented that I made man. But what I like about, he's willing to do something different. What he says is, I can't trust that man. So I will send a new man. I will come down myself in the form of flesh. And the word became flesh and dwelt among us. He will have to go through the same birth canal that you go through. He will have to be a baby. He will have to be breastfed. He will have to be weaned, grow up, walk and talk and learn the language, learn the concepts, and then die. I can trust that. And then whosoever believeth in that will be saved. I cannot trust you. So if God is doing something different, I believe that love is saying you have to love you enough. This is before covenant, but sometimes in covenant, if they're going to break covenant, love you enough to say, I got to do something different. Yeah. I repented that I did this, and I'm willing to do something different to keep the purpose alive. The purpose of mankind was to rule. If God says, after I can't trust Adam, I'm done, there's no rulership. What he says is, I'll send a man. We have to have something in us that when trust is broken, we don't have to cheat. We don't have to run. We don't have to leave. But we do have to say, what do I need to do different? I may need to get out of this. I may not need to be friends with you. I might need to forgive you, heal, and say, it's not healthy for me to be in covenant with you or to be in friendship with you. I just need to love on you. I might go out to eat with you. I might do, but you've already shown me what you need to show me. There, I believe there's a principle of discernment. There's a law of the harvest. There, what they've sown, they've reaped, and it's the fruit. And Jesus said, "You know a tree by the fruit it bears." You're gonna be able to know what's on that tree. I can't trust you. That's on your tree. That's your fruit. I can't trust you. I ain't got to the roots. I don't know why I can't trust you. I don't know why you lie so much. I don't know why you do it. I don't have to do that. What I need to do is say, this is inspect the fruit. I can't eat this because if I eat this, I'm gonna die. And some of us are in friendships, at jobs, and in marriages, eating the fruit in the name of love. And God didn't eat. He said, no. Get out my garden. And so I believe once they break that trust, what you're doing is resulting to who they are when you cheat.
It's kind of like how what they say is, and I just find it so dumb, but I see it so much on social media when somebody I'm a match energy with energy.
You can't.
I don't even understand that. If you're not calling me, I'm not calling you. This stupid. Like, get to the root of the issue, and either you are going to stay in whatever relationship that is, or not. Because he also lists like some of the other things, that we do. Because like you say, why don't we just walk?
Walk.
Instead of withdrawing or quiet quitting, why don't we just walk? Or the other, move to task. And that just talks about how instead of addressing the issue, or maybe I've tried to address the issue and nothing is happening, I start filling it in with things to do. So that's when people start, I'm working late because I really don't want to go home. So I'm working late. Or instead of addressing the issue, I'm just finding other things to do. I'm creating new hobbies. I'm going out here and there, but I'm not sitting down and working through it either because I don't want to, or I've already tried and I feel like I can't. Or
And I'm staying for convenience.
we don't leave.
They stand for convenience.
I'm staying for convenience.
The mission is somebody else. So I got to stay for my kids.
I got to stay for my kids.
I got to stay so the church
off.
won't talk about us.
Or
I got to stay so we won't look like a failure.
Right.
I have to stay because you my only friend.
But all the while you're dying
that's
inside.
The thing, though.
No,
People be
real.
saying because they feel
A scarcity mindset.
Or the thought of I don't want to be alone. This is the best I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've been in the relationship a long time. We often wonder when we see these relationships of people that have been married 30, 35 years, and all of a sudden we see that they're getting a divorce. And you're like, I've been married 35 years or 40 years. What happened? And of course, now talking about this and looking at this, you can kind of see what happened. We probably broke down 20 years ago.
Right.
And maybe we did try, maybe we didn't. Maybe there was infidelity. We never really know the full picture. But then you look
functional dysfunction,
and it's like we were functional. We weren't relational. We're in a functional situation. I knew I could count on you to pay bills. You could trust me to. You can count on me to cook the meals, watch the kids, take care of the kids. But now that the kids are grown, they've got kids of their own. We look at each other like it's time. I'm done. You're done. The kids are grown. They got their own kids. I think they'll be fine at this point. Not even really understanding that it doesn't matter how old your kids are. If your parents break up, it's still going to have an effect on you, period.
Because they can pick.
It doesn't matter what age they are. It's going to have an effect on you. But knowing that probably 15 years ago, we should have made this decision and possibly walked away because neither one of us was willing to give, or like I said earlier, maybe that person doesn't have the capacity because y'all were never supposed to be together in the first place. This wasn't the person that you were supposed to be with. But maybe y'all got into a situation where you got pregnant, or daddy said, "No, you're gonna marry her," or like you said, you was in church, and because instead of just saying, "I messed up," We had a baby. Let's move on. You decided we're gonna get married, knowing full well that that was not the covenant partner that God had for you. Got into these relationships with people that God never ordained for you to get into a relationship with. That's why it says what He has joined together to let no man put asunder. But if we're honest, a lot of these marriages, a lot of these relationships, He didn't put together. We put them together,
Right.
So
and then
meaning,
we don't understand why they fall apart. Well, they fall apart because they were never put together by Him in the first place.
no
We're
love.
not. They're not fulfilling us. They're not giving us what we need because they were not His. They weren't designed by Him. We chose
Right.
these people. We picked these people, and all the while the Holy Ghost is saying, "Run." That ain't the one. That's not your friend. Get
Yeah.
away. Like, no, I can change him. I can change her. I can work with him because we want people. We're lonely.
It's
Maybe
the draw.
we've gone through rejection.
That
The
draw.
draw.
All these different types of things, and we want people. But I mean, I want people too, but I want the right people because I don't want to. I don't want to be doing this all my life. We see every year. People post for New Year's. They blocking people. They cleaning out their friends. If you're doing that every year, something is wrong. Every year you blocking people. Every year I'm reevaluating my circle. You got to reevaluate your circle every year.
Every year.
Something's wrong with that.
Because the problem is probably you.
Right,
If
right,
you
right,
have
right.
to
In that case,
reevaluate every year, then 9 times out of 10, it's you. It
I
just
think it's
is
the
what it is.
environment too, though. I think we're not picking anybody. They're just coming to us because that's where we are. You see what I'm saying? If you go, if you work 24/7, your friends are going to be at work
Mm-hmm.
because that's where you are. And then at the end of the year, you realize I didn't really want these people. I just work here.
Right.
These were never my friends. We just went to school together. These were never my home, but we just grew up together. I didn't know, but I'm only picking from my environment. It's the
Mm.
same with dating. If you're only getting from the same pool of people,
branch out.
you're gonna have to change where you are.
Environments.
Sometimes it's placement,
Mhm.
and so the reason you're evaluating the circle so much is because you never left the spot, and so it's the same characters coming through the door. You in the same spot. You in the same hood. You're in the same
You
proximity.
say you're in the same spot.
You're in the same spot. You never left the spot. So it's the type of person not changing because it's a type of person that comes to that spot. You see what I'm saying? It's the type of people that shop at Whole Foods. There's a type of people that go to the vegan food truck. There's a type. So if you're in that same spot, that type has come to that spot. So you can reevaluate your circle all you want. You may need to do something different in terms of
Step outside the circle.
right. You never left the spot.
But it is your circle that also influences you, which is what I try to tell my kids, that somebody is going to influence one another. Like, you're not going to ever be able to hang out with somebody and either you going to rub off on them or they going to rub off on you, but something is going to rub off. And so you find yourself doing what your, circle does. And so I think it's wise, I guess, if my circle, it changed when I changed. And so if you're having issues because people don't like to, because we don't want to hurt nobody's feelings and we don't want to judge nobody. I'll be sick of that. But sometimes I think we might have to tell people, no, sis, it's you. Like it is literally you. And I can't change anybody, but I can change me. And when I changed me, my circle changed. I mean, I just had somebody ask me, like, you don't hang out with us no more. My circle changed. My beliefs changed. So it's certain things in places that I don't even fit in anymore. And so the type of people that I would generally link up with, whether a romantic relationship or just friends.
Them thugs.
Yeah, that's why I don't have no thug.
Them thugs.
With them
That's
thugs.
why I don't have no thug, because we don't fit anymore. And so I think that we have to definitely reevaluate ourselves. But when I see those posts, it just makes me wonder what's wrong with you that you have to do this every year because I'm not taking in the old into the new. I pretty much have all the same people because I don't just bring, new people in my life. And because I think about
I like that.
um one of the ladies that's next door to me, her classroom is next door. She was like, your new neighbor isn't going to be as cool as I am. Maybe not. But the only reason that she and I connected, I think I became more like a mentor, and I saw in increments that I can trust you with this. I
Yeah.
can trust you with that. And then we were able to start spending time together, but I didn't just immediately start calling you my friend. I got to get to know you. I got to spend time with you. I have to see what your beliefs are. Do they align? And we talked about last week how we do these, microwave relationships where it's really quick and we don't take the time to get to know each other. And so I think that's probably another reason why people are having to cut off so
Mhm.
much because I hopped in. And now that I done hopped in, I
People
don't like
straight
it, and I'm
hopping
not
in.
taking you in with me into the new year. So let me just cut you off instead of taking the time to figure out,
Right.
um, are you somebody that I need in my life?
Mhm.
But I also think too that our relational issues come from, past. Because one of the other things that he talked about was being after you either withdraw or you start filling your life up with things so you don't have to address anything, you also, I'm on page 35, become this unbalanced giver in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been with somebody, they just give, 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 give. But I give so much, I never think about receiving because at one point when I needed something, I didn't get it. So to keep from getting my feelings hurt again, I make sure that I give, but I never expect to receive. I don't ask of anything because relationally, one time I
Mm-hmm.
was damaged, I never dealt with it. So now I function that way in all of my relationships. And you hear people say, oh, they're such a giving person. Sometimes you might have to try to, why are they giving so much? And is it unbalanced so much so that they always give, but they never open up about what they need? I'm so sure that there was probably some relational trust that was broken in the aspect of needs. And so now I'm quick to give, but I ain't about to tell you what I need because for fear that you're going to deny me like the last person did.
Mm.
But I think too with that, I think like even going back to telling people to leave or just depart or do it, I think some people trust was never the requirement. Um, if you go
Mm.
all the way back to childhood, I heard this guy on Instagram. I can't think of his name, but he was talking about the five wounds of the soul, and he said it's abandonment, uh, ego. I mean, no, not ego. Five wounds of the ego or the soul. He said it's abandonment. Um, I'm going to top of my head. Rejection, humiliation, uh, injustice, and forgive me because the last one is failing me. But if we rejection, abandonment, humiliation, injustice, and one more somewhere failing me. But if that happens early enough,
Mm-hmm.
you can resolve that. That's just the way things are.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I don't expect to trust you. You know, you'll hear the rhetoric. Oh, you just can't trust. You can't trust men. You can't trust women. You can't trust this. You can't trust white folks. You can't trust your boss. You can't trust nobody. You see what I'm saying?
But you
Because of
laughing
some
for it, that was a thing. Like we was brought up on can't trust white people.
yeah. So I think sometimes it's not some people's requirement.
It's true.
Um, and so you're wanting them to see something that it's not even a value. Like I don't believe that that's real. So I just believe you got your hiccups and whatever. You should expect somebody to do this to you, but you should also just go on after they do it and still deal with them. I do believe you should expect certain things because we're all human. Even biblically, the Bible never tells you to trust anyone. You'll never see that.
Just trust in the Lord.
It just says trust in the Lord and lean not
to your own
own
understanding.
understanding.
But it never really requires, because that's why. Okay, going back to the last podcast, that's what I was saying. We mix up these our values in America dating with Christ and then call it holy. You can't have no relationship without trust. That's not true, because God sent his son for us and he cannot trust us. He sent his son to die for us. He and you see it all through the Old Testament. He could not trust the very people he would literally die for.
Right.
Some of us, we cannot trust our children, and we know it. And it's not because they're young.
We love them to death.
Because they grow up and you still say, I can't trust that boy. You know he doesn't.
I wouldn't give him $20 to go do nothing. You
know. And so we spew out certain things.
But we don't kick the curb.
You don't have nothing without trust. And I've been guilty of thinking that as well, because that's what we heard. Trust is the foundation. But it's really Christ the solid rock.
Hello. Because all of the ground.
Come on, sign. Come on, sign. Come on.
It's Christ.
Come on.
Give me my Waffle House. But no, seriously, because if you love Christ and I love Christ, it removes any doubt, because I know that even if you mess up, Ford, you're a man after God's own heart. You're gonna. David was sinful,
wasn't he?
And he really wasn't as repentant as we like. When we talk about I call it the rape of Bathsheba, and they have the baby. When Nathan comes to him, I believe the baby is one, because they were praying for the baby to live. So he waited a year before he was repentant. He didn't wake up the next day, Lord, I shouldn't have killed Uriah. He didn't do that. But he
was confronted.
He waited. At least a year had passed. At least. Because you got to be pregnant for a while.
Yeah.
and if the baby had an illness, and I believe he prayed for, I think it was a hot minute. I don't want to give the wrong number. So he didn't just wake up the next day and say, I'm sorry, Lord, and write the song. What is it? Psalm 51, 57? 51. He didn't just wake up and write Psalm 51 the next day, the next week, the next month. God couldn't even trust David. David couldn't trust David. I heard a preacher say this. He said, it's crazy. He said, we talk about David and Goliath the most, and Samuel wrote about Goliath. He said David didn't even document it. You don't read any psalm about Goliath. He said that's the biggest victory. He said, but Samuel records it. It's big to Samuel because he has to make sure he got the prophecy right. When the Lord is done with Saul, and Samuel's mourning Saul, I put the oil on Saul, and you told me to go put the oil on David. I know I did right, because he just killed that. And Samuel, that's a victory for him.
Yeah.
All of the kills of the mightiest warrior, that's the biggest one, and David never records it. But what he writes in the psalm, what he does record, is his flesh. That fleshly battle was more to him than killing the giant, slaying the giant, freeing his nation, becoming king over the split coming of Judah, and then over all of Israel. He records this because that's where his heart was. But he couldn't trust himself, because he couldn't trust himself functionally or relationally. The Bible said there's a time when kings go off to war. That's his function.
What was David?
At home on the roof.
At home on the roof.
He didn't go. He couldn't trust himself functionally, always do what he was supposed to do. But then relationally, he couldn't trust because he sees her and says, bring her to me. And when you have deeply rooted issues, and I think he struggled with that 5 wounds of the soul because his dad, Jesse rejected him.
Mm-hmm. He was
He
rejected by Jesse.
struggles. He humiliated him. His brothers. All right, what are you doing down here? We the fighters. What are you doing?
Wasn't it rumored that David's mom was not the same mom as the brothers?
It is rumored that he was considered a bastard and he should never have been king because kings have to follow a lineage.
That's right.
Mhm.
So that's why Samuel was tripped up. We're going real Bible here, but that's why Samuel was tripped up when he
chose
went
him.
to the house of Jesse.
Yeah.
What? Why ain't it Jonathan? He's tripped up because what's in this house? And why ain't he starting with the oldest? And why ain't he starting with this one? And the one who looks, they were so caught up on look, they were working off how monarchy worked. And the Bible says, man sees the outer, God looks at the heart. God can judge the heart. So he picked off of his heart. But even a good-hearted David could not trust David, and God could not trust him. But what God did say is, I love him enough to say, go back up. You still king. This still going to affect your household.
Right, because David should have been killed.
your children are mad.
He should have been killed.
There's a whole theme of fatherhood in 1st and 2nd Samuel.
Oh, yeah.
From Eli and his sons.
Yep. Samuel and his.
To Samuel and his. To David. There's a theme of fatherhood. I got sermons and just notes on that. And now somebody will do it, but they'll do it before I do it now. But you can have it. There's a theme of fatherhood.
You get to do it.
Yeah. They heard it here first.
They ain't gonna do it like you would do it, so it don't matter.
You still got to do
it. I'll still do it. And I believe we can share. We can share. It's wisdom. But there's a theme there of fathers and sons, and until you get to Solomon having enough knowledge to write to his sons. Proverbs are written to his boys.
Yeah.
So you have this lineage of foolishness, and then you have the king who asked for wisdom imparted to his sons. And that was really God foreshadowing our sonship. Not from fleshly fathers, but from wisdom. And so you have to see the Proverbs as the wisdom of God, but the pen of a father to his fleshly son. That's way too much Bible. But what I'm trying to prove is that even the people who are after God's own heart can't always be trusted. But what we can trust them to do is write Psalm 51. So trust ain't the foundation. The solid rock is the foundation. The rock of God is the foundation, because I know when you wrong me for it. I know when you wrong me, Angeline. I know when you wrong me, Miss Carter, you'll write Psalm 51. You'll come back and say you'll fix it. And that's how we'll last. And we won't have to be giving a 10-90 ratio. We won't have to quiet quit. We won't even have to do something new. God, when he sends Jesus, now we don't have to ever
create
do anything
bad
new.
habits, because that was the next one.
What God does is he creates the system of the principle of repentance to restore the relationship. Even if the trust is damaged, the repentance is fruit that the heart wants to do better.
True.
That is what love is. That is what.
Amen.
That's why nobody has the answer to trust, because he never told us to trust. Because he can't trust us. And if we're honest, we can't trust us. How many diets have you started on Monday?
I'm starting one next Monday.
Don't start it on a Monday.
How many diets have you? How much have you? How many books have you not finished? Let's be fair. We can't trust us. You put the James Brown up. We can't trust us. And so we go into relationships and friendships demanding that you trust. Even respect. Respect is one of my core values. Self-respect, how I treat me, how I love me. I want you to love me how I love me.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to treat you how I treat me.
Want to be treated.
Now, here's the thing. I have other values that keep me treating me right so I can treat you right. But I can't always demand that you respect. What I can say is if you're disrespectful, I can disassociate. But I can't dictate what you'll do. What I can say is though, if you do this, if you disrespect me, is there a method that will of getting it right? When Jesus says, "Go to that person, don't wait for them to come to you. Go to them." And if you know you offended them, leave your sacrifice, and then you go to them. And y'all don't just try to work it out. Bring 2 or 3 with you. Bring 2 witnesses, because we're 2 or 3 together in my name. Are you willing to do something in my name? The solid rock. You can't. I don't think you can ever restore trust, but you don't just have to exist and function at a lower level. You can still have a high level relationship, even though I know you're capable of breaking my trust, and I'm okay with that. So that may be why some people are leaving, because they may have reached Miss Carter status that said, "Oh, I know Mr. Carter might do whatever, but he'll pin Psalm 51 for me. He'll go get 2 witnesses, and we're 2 or 3 together. We'll work it out."
We're gonna work it out.
Trust may never be restored, and it shouldn't, because it shouldn't have been so high on the on the chart anyway.
You don't trust nobody like that. But
that's our American view saying you don't got nothing if you don't have trust. That's why this man he don't really give you no steps in his book, because it ain't none.
It's not like
it's
that.
only God. If you married a godly person, if you're friends with a godly person, now here's your discernment. If they're ungodly, you have to make a decision on how to deal with a non-believer. This is where we get our turn. Don't be unequally yoked.
Right.
That's what he said.
When you're unequally yoked with a non-believer, you're demanding that they give you something that only believers know how to really give, because believers know how to mess up and pen our song. We know how to go and say, "Father, forgive me. Have mercy on me, oh God." We know how to say, I was wrong. What do I have to do to get? We know how to do that.
Well, we should. Let me say that.
We should.
And so many people don't.
Not all believers are that mature.
Christ has to be the rock of trust. I mean, the rock of our relationship. Trust, I think, has been set too high. You don't have to cheat.
Right.
What you may do is discern, okay,
I mean,
what would they do after they do this to me? What would they do after they didn't care and hear my heart? What would they do after they broke my trust? Once you see what they would do, now you have a decision to make.
But you know what?
Go ahead.
Because we're talking about, trust, and when you said that the Bible doesn't talk about trust other than trusting in the Lord, I think we don't leave or we don't sever relationships, obviously due to some of these past wounds that we haven't healed, but we don't trust God to be what we feel we're going to lack. Because I know me, I've stayed in things where I felt like I need this. Because I remember the last relationship that I was in for 7 years. And I've been praying to God, like, God, I know I need to let this go. But I didn't know how I would function, because I had started to rely on that relationship for so much that I was no longer relying on God. And so it wasn't until I realized that God is all I really need. But do I trust him to be all that I need? And that goes back to, we quoted Psalms 23 so much. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If you just stop right there, I don't want nothing. Because if the Lord is my shepherd and I'm going to trust him, then I'm going to trust that you're going to be whatever it is that I feel that I need, or I need.
Right.
On the things that I don't even know, that I need. And so a lot of times, as we discussed before, we be in these relationships out of certain needs. At the end of last episode, we said out of trauma, because we haven't dealt with certain issues. And so if we're talking about on Christ the solid rock, I said, then it really ties in everything that everybody said. Miss Carter was talking about love. You're saying you can't, it's not going to work if you're unequally yoked, not necessarily religion, so to speak, but are we on the same page with God is my Lord, God is your Lord? And if we're both submitted this way, then we can come together. And when things go wrong, because they are, we can activate that love and have the power of the Holy Ghost, the
Amen.
Spirit, to be able to manage these relationships. And that's activating those fruits of the Spirit.
Amen.
And so that's the only way we're able to really be in relation with people and not have to withdraw, fill our lives up with tasks, become unbalanced in how we give. We didn't talk about the bad habits, but you have people who you become addicted to things. I don't deal with it, but I'm going to emotionally eat
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not dealing with my relationship. So I become an emotional eater,
I'm
or
gonna ch-
I become addicted to drugs and alcohol because of a relationship that I didn't deal with and I'm still in, or I never dealt with what happened to it, but I'm carrying over that into another relationship. And so if we relied solely on God to lead us and guide us and be able to use the discernment when we connect with people, then we won't be in these jacked up relationships. We can let it go when we
Mhm.
realize this is not good for me, and know that I'm going to be okay because God is my source. He's all that I need. I'm satisfied with whatever he gives me, whatever he takes away, because even when stuff is removed, he replaces it with something better. I mean, we saw that with Job. Everything was wiped out, with Job, but he gave him way more
Yeah.
than what he had. So I think when you tie it all in, it does go back to how much do you trust God? And when I trust him, then I can manage the relationships because I'm going to be in relationship or do my best to discern who I'm allowing into my life. And then if we are walking together, like I just believe that with Ford or Miss Carter or Nathan, y'all are in my circle. I consider y'all to be close to me, but because I know that all four of us have submitted ourselves to God, then I feel like we can weather any storm if we do offend each other. I don't feel like that's the end all be all. I feel
Right.
like I can come to you guys and say, you
Right.
know what? Hey, I ain't like when you did X, Y, and Z. Or if I tell you something and maybe I don't get the response I need because I know where your heart is. I feel like all three of you have my best interest at heart. Maybe it stung what you said, but I know you meant, well. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you're in relationship with other people who they not believers. And I think we just have to do a better job about even when saying that somebody's in. I was just talking to somebody who claimed to love the Lord. Like when I say reverend, said you was a reverend, not, not. And so I could have done a better job with discerning, and that's right.
That's right.
That's the look I had, but I should have done a better job with discerning. You know, that tree looking a little slim, like the fruit. It
It's
we
rotten.
say it's this, but you know what I'm saying. But
Get forward, man.
it just I don't know, but people
Ooh.
they'll come at you in the name, and that's another one that you have to be mindful of. People who they claiming the love of the Lord, they claiming all the stuff because they know that's what you own, and so they'll
Mm.
hit you with the stuff that she like that when I say that. So because I have even people at work, they will talk to me about spiritual stuff, I know you ain't talking to the person across the hall and room, whatever, about Jesus. I know you not. But when people see that that's what you want, then they'll come at you with that, and then you have to try to see, well, do you really believe that before I even allow you in? That's all I got.
All right, chapter 2 wrapped up, tied up with a bow.
And that other wound, it came to me. It was betrayal.
Ooh,
5 wounds
big
of
one.
the
Big
ego
one.
or the soul. It was betrayal, abandonment, rejection, humiliation, and injustice.
You
And
said injustice.
uh-huh. And he was talking about how you will end up turning those things on yourself after those things happen to you. And that's what the point I was referencing when I said some people, because they've been betrayed, they've experienced abandonment, it's self-betrayal, and he goes deeper into it, but I just thought that was real interesting to see that those 5 things can wound or bruise the soul, and then they shape our paradigms of what life should be in relationships, because my soul was crushed by, it could be parents, grandparents, people who were bullied in school. A lot of things happen early on, and when you meet a person, you're you're meeting them, but you're dating their paradigms.
That's
You're
true.
you're marrying their childhood. You're
True.
marrying, unless they've done the work to heal and
Two histories
deal.
coming together.
It's grown bodies, but it's two
Mhm.
paradigms, and if the paradigm is broken,
Yeah.
you attached yourself to brokenness, and that's not our job to heal. It's not our job to attach ourselves. We should wait and say, I love you, but God has to do his work first, so you're better and more functional for what we're trying to do. Sometimes
Yeah.
we get into it, and then our goal becomes to heal them, and we think we're doing the honorable thing because I'm helping you. I'm gonna get you right. I'm gonna do what everybody else didn't do, and now you're laboring in something that you should be flourishing in.
Making them a project.
And so
Or
it
made ourselves one, because we'll get
right,
into it
right,
thinking that
and
this marriage or this
and you
relationship
can
is going
do
to heal
you
me.
can do that so much if
Mm.
you have a broken paradigm, uh you attract yourself to brokenness. If you saw brokenness early on, you say, I need to be a fixer or a savior, and you're actually attracted to people who need that part of you,
I
and
like
you feel
that.
fulfilled marrying he or she that needs that, and you say, man, that's how I show love. I love you because I picked you up out of, what I'm saying, out of despair. I treated you right. Nobody else would. I fixed that. You'd have to watch though. If you fix them and now they're ready to live, they may not want to live with you because they could see you as a physician and and not a partner. And nobody wants to marry the doctor. They don't want to marry. You fixed me. Thank you. Now I can
Now
go be the best I
I
can
can
be.
go be great.
I can go bigger because and you have only yourself to blame, because what you took out of a childhood situation or a teenage situation, somebody applauded you for being such a help to them. And you have to watch. I watch what people say at weddings with their vow. I wouldn't be nothing without you.
He's stupid.
Oh, right.
He was like, "Oh, it's
I
home.
would.
Home
I
from
just
the
made a
would.
vow.
beginning."
I
You just
wouldn't
made
be.
a
You wouldn't be
vow.
nothing.
He was
You
like,
just
"Oh,
made a vow.
And I get what they mean,
Just stick to
but
the
sometimes I,
traditional.
I wonder, where is that coming from? Because we were created to be complete. Now, while the Bible said it's not good for man to be alone, he's talking about the functional process of dominion. You can't sit there and talk to an animal or a cat. They're a good friend, but you have dominion over it.
Yeah.
And you would never design to be in relationship with anything you can control. You can tell that dog, get out of here. Come here. You train it to
I'm
your
telling you,
liking.
that's why people they be thinking that I have an issue with people who you gotta have these pets with you 24/7.
Right.
But I don't
And nothing
understand.
against
I don't have nothing
It's
against it,
nothing
but
against it.
something is
They
off.
don't come for us.
For
Nothing.
you do not have a service dog for
It's nothing. It's nothing
it's
against
nothing
it.
against that. But
No, that's what
anybody
I'm
who
saying.
can
No,
sit
I don't
up,
have one. I'm just that's what I'm saying. Don't people get a they
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
talking
Don't
for you, but
don't
you
stop
do have
watching.
to
Love your
deal with
dog.
self
yes.
when you can sit
It's
up
your cats, whatever.
and you
Whatever
can
it
talk
is.
to a dog and lay up with a dog and communicate with a dog, but you struggle with people. Something is wrong there. When you can't even go to the bathroom, but the dog got to go with you. You can't even go out to eat, and it's at the table with you. That's a problem.
Because he created us for companionship with people. So anything that's going to be done in the earth, we're going to have to do it together. So when the Bible talks about it's not good for man to be alone, he wasn't talking about marriage. Because Paul said, I suffer you not to get married. Christ showed us how to
and not
walk
all of
without
us
getting
will
married.
be married.
So marriage is not what he's referring to. What he's referring to is assignments need purpose partners. So Adam, here's your assignment: dominion, rule, name the animals, do this. But he named them, but he couldn't relate. So when he goes through something emotionally, sure, the dog might come sit by him, but he can't give him what we're doing right now. That's why they say go see a therapist. They never said go see a pet. They never said that because
They didn't.
therapy is designed as a partnership tool to help you get out what's in here so you can be functional.
I'm about to go
Everybody
see
can
a
just
dog,
go,
man.
and they're gonna cancel us after this. But I'm making a point. I'm making a point that while you love your pets and your dogs, when it's not good for man to be alone meant something different. And so we have to understand that we're gonna need people. We're gonna need to, but we don't always have to build it on because I couldn't trust one person, I couldn't trust everybody.
Right.
Right.
And you have to watch your paradigms because my uncle did this or my dad did this. All men are this, all marriages are this, all I can't trust, even with race, all white people are this. And I know that's hard, because we're in a movement where I'm proud to be black. I'm proud to be a black man. But I do understand that in the kingdom of God, it's not one color.
Right.
So I have to open myself up to what another race offers me in my. I may need to book a room with a white business or a white church. I may need donations. I may need when you're pastoring, your resources come in all colors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also souls come in all colors.
Come
and
on.
when Jesus said in the book of Acts, this is going from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth, it's all colors. So I can't let my wound of growing up in a small town that has some racist residue on it, still
My
divided
son.
by a train track, I can't let that
Come on.
hinder. I can't let that
For a lot of people.
Well.
I've worked on jobs with racist people. I've had racist bosses.
I still do.
I've seen systemic racism. I've seen all the black people get fired before. I've seen it, but and it breaks your trust. But I have to say, if it's not good for man to be alone, and this gospel goes to the ends of the earth, then I have to deal with my wound to the soul, my betrayal, my abandonment, my rejection, my humiliation, and my injustice, and say, how do I now pair and partner, even though I've been wounded? I cannot give 1090. I can't quiet quit because you can quiet quit at work. Some people quiet quit on their marriage, but you cannot quiet quit in the faith. When you are trying to do what God wants you to do, if you quiet quit, you disrespect you disrespect yourself because he's designed you and equipped you and prepared you to do. And I'm not telling you nothing that I haven't suffered with. People who know me best know I will say, all right, they can have it. You don't want this word? Okay, cool. You don't want me to come to your church? Cool. I ain't never fought to be booked. I don't even like planes. So I ain't never been the one like you ain't got. Hey, I'm fine. I'll say that in a minute. I'm fine. But
Yeah.
really
I'm
and
good.
truly, it's speaking from the womb, and you have to write. You have to journal. You have to. I've gone to therapy, and you say I still have to offer this in the kingdom of God, but I have to do it now with my limp. I have to wrestle with the angel, and then with my limp, now I have to go and do it.
Come on,
Because
Bafumba
Jesus said
Shia.
it best: if any man be my follower, he got to pick up his cross.
And follow me.
He got to deny himself. And the cross is heavy. The Bible speaks about laying aside uh, sin and weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that getting your healing is the weight. The church taught us about sin, but what about weight? So when you have that five wounds of the ego and of the soul shape paradigms, and they shape how you deal with people. And when you get in a tussle with distrust and honor and trust versus respect and trust versus whatever it is, and you get hurt, you have to reason with yourself and say, this happens. Now, should it keep happening with you? Should I? Is it smart? Is it smart? Is it wise? Is it wise? Is it healthy? Will this crush me or kill me to be here? Sometimes it's not healthy. It's just not. And you can say, I still love you. I don't trust you, but I love you. But for my health, I can't be here.
Hmm.
Do you realize what you have done
What?
on this episode?
What's that?
You basically killed the narrative, and you heard it here first, folks.
Here we go.
That the only trust you have to have is trusting God. So from now on, especially my single people, no longer shall we walk around talking about I need trust, communication. Like, we don't need to do that any longer, because
Because you
only
don't need
trust that we
you
need to
don't really
have
need trust.
is trust in the Lord. Now, maybe you might want to ask, do you trust God? But other than that, you just killed it. Like, no more can we sit here and talk about the trust that we don't have between so and so.
Right.
But you also just like this book, you just basically told us these boundaries that we supposed to be trying to get beyond. Like, you make me so sick, because you just basically
Come
said,
on.
like,
Go ahead, say it.
you need to make sure that your connection with God is so strong, so that you can have the discernment to figure out, where do I go with you
When trust has been broken.
when trust has been,
Right.
because that's what this is all
It
about.
is going
Getting beyond, it
Learn
says
about
beyond
that
boundaries,
first.
it's
because
gonna
they have
happen.
boundaries for this and that. Like,
That's
there's
the
a whole
moment.
series on boundaries, but you have to move beyond the boundaries. So
Right.
once the trust has been broken and I done put the wall up, I gotta go around the wall, because that's why we talked about the draw last episode. You're going to be drawn.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's never gonna go anywhere. So I got to come from around, I gotta open the boundary up. But in doing so, because trust has been broken, my trust was in man and not God.
Right. So
So
it's really
Trust
on
in
me.
man.
It's really on me.
right.
And that
So I
narrative,
gotta
and
do a
that
self work.
as far as relationships, I don't know. I don't know who all talks about it, but I know with just trusting God. I think I heard Hart Ramsey say that before, so I don't want to take. They might have heard. I don't know how
But
deep Hart
I
went
love
with
me
it,
some heart. I'm just saying,
but I remember. I know
um,
Hart Ramsey does. He did at least make a post about trusting in the Lord and not being called to trust everybody. And so I'm always give credit if you give me something, but
we thank you hard.
we might went deeper with it today, but I know for a fact Hart Ramsey has said out of his mouth, we're not called to trust anybody. So you thank
But
Hart
what
Ramsey
you said was
for that.
that ain't even necessarily a component in a relationship.
Now I did say that. Hart said it's not biblical, but I'm
Right.
saying it's not. If it's not biblical, why did we put it in relationships? Now I did say that.
And well,
But,
that's what I'm saying. You basically
yeah.
just took it out of there. So at this point, we have to start looking at the needs because we always talk about, well, what do we need in a relationship?
Yeah.
And most people are going to say trust and communication.
Biblical trust.
You know what I'm
What
saying?
Hart
We
was
say
saying,
that.
trust is
Mhm.
only biblical because you have to trust in God.
And not man.
It's not a man. It's not a if I'm gonna be Miss Carter's friend, I gotta be able to trust her. I really don't.
Because now that you bring it up, you can even look at the relationship that Jesus had with the 12 disciples. He
Right.
chose
Couldn't
Judas
trust.
knowing he could not trust him.
Now the David stuff that I came up in my own head.
Yeah.
David couldn't trust himself. He couldn't functionally.
And Jesus
he didn't
still
go to
picked
war.
Judas knowing what Judas was going to do to him.
Yeah.
He still
But
chose him. He still
Because
picked
David's
him.
one of my favorite characters.
Oh, David's my
study.
favorite. He's definitely one of my favorite.
Anything about him. So I did now. Yeah, he cannot trust himself functionally. All of that, the Psalm 51. Yeah, I take it. But as far as just trusting in God, that's hard.
But Jesus trusted in the plan of the Father,
right.
even in his choice of Judas, because he knew what Judas was going to do, but he still
feet.
allowed him into the circle.
Because it had to be done in order for the prophecy to be fulfilled.
Exactly, but as it goes back to what he's saying about us not having to have trust in people, because if that was the case, then he wouldn't have chosen, because he would have said, I need somebody I can trust in my circle.
Right.
And although
And
he didn't have those other ones that he could, he
And
still had to choose him, as you said, so that he could push him to the cross. And sometimes
Judas had to have.
We have to allow in that we can't quote unquote trust, because they're going to push us to the next place.
Can you trust Peter?
I mean, he already said, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times, my boy.
But he also said, when Peter confessed that thou art the Christ, he said, upon this rock I build my church.
Yeah.
And he changed his name from Simon to Peter.
Yeah.
I know in the end, I can't trust you to stick with me when it gets rough.
Because you already told you what's going to happen.
He already knew.
Yeah.
But I love you enough to change your name here and say, I'll build my church. And I believe he had an affinity for Peter, even though I know this is because he said, you're going to deny me.
He said, no, I ain't.
That's a different kind of friendship.
Oh, but he got the cousin and everything.
That's a different kind of friendship to have. But it's Jesus saying, my purpose isn't dependent on if I can trust.
That's right.
All of you. It's if I can restore you. See, I can come back and tell you the devil asked to see if you like wheat.
Right.
I can come back and say we have that kind of bond. I can't trust. I knew it would come to a place where the fire would get too hot, and I really can't. I can't ask any man to do that. Almost. That's what Jesus is saying. Sometimes our trust is unrealistic. Nobody was prepared to be hung and murdered. None of them. No. That's why he leaves his spirit in Acts. He says, stay in Jerusalem till you get the gift, because it's the gift that's going to give you. Because I think what Jesus is saying is, I really didn't want to do it either in my flesh, but the Spirit allowed me.
He didn't, because he said, look.
But the Spirit allowed me to
be a will
and love and have God's love upon me and do out and carry out his plan. The Spirit allowed me to do that. And so now I'm leaving my spirit with you. And when it gets rough for you, when people quit on you, when you get your Judas and you get your Peter, and you'll have my spirit up on you. Mm-hmm. And that is the love that Miss Carter is talking about. The Holy Spirit is a gift, and you only give gifts out of love.
Yeah.
And that
and that's what you need when everything is going awry.
Right. Now that's all.
That's what you need when everything is going
from David to Jesse to Saul to Sam. Everything we talk about now, that's us. They heard that here first, and hopefully they take it and they use it, and hopefully we take it and we use it, because I don't speak from a place of having it all together. Most biblical conclusions that I come to, they come from suffering. If I didn't go through it, I wouldn't know it.
It's true.
I had to go through a process, and then I could read the Bible and find myself and say, "Oh, that you know what? I like David so much he couldn't trust himself, but I can't trust me either." Sometimes I was able to pull out that I want to slay my giants too. But if somebody asked me about I wouldn't talk about my victories. I talk about what I penned in Psalm. So it's a way that I look at certain things, and I want the listeners to look at it too. If we shattered it, we shattered it. But I'm not saying get with somebody you can't trust. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you talk about what you value and what you desire from a person, I think you want to be able to trust them, but be open to the fact that all of us have a level of inadequacy, and we ain't gonna always hit that mark.
Well, that's just making it realistic. And that's what I was trying to tell, one person before. I'm going to do my best, to not hurt you. But the longer we're in connection, I'm going to do something.
Right.
It could be big, it could be small. I don't know what, because that was one of the things that he said in this book, is that it's not until stress or things change, like you have a baby or you lose a job, or maybe you get this job, but something changes at work and it requires, to do more. It's kind of like, Miss Carter, remember when we were working at Laos together, and at one point we was getting off at a decent time, and then our hours changed to 5. And even though you were teaching an elective and me English, the weight in the building was so heavy because we were under a new regime, a whole new model. Everybody was looking at us, so we were all feeling it. And so when things changed in there, I'm so sure stuff changed in people's homes. I know it changed in mine, because the kids were getting out at 5. They were doing after school stuff till 6. Teachers don't work till the kids leave. So if I can't even start working until the kids leave, I'm probably not leaving work till 7 or 8. I got 3 kids.
Yep.
And I'm a single parent with 3 kids. How many spouses want spouse to come home at 7 or 8 talking about you teaching? So I know I got it when he said you don't get to see whether or not that trust is functioning relationally and all of that until something changes or something happens. And so that goes back to us not rushing being in relationships with somebody, friend or not, romantic or not, because you got to wait till something changes, something hits to see, can I trust you in this way? Because I can trust you when everything is good. I mean, we having a good time, we going out and all of that. It's not until life hits.
It can be a little thing. We were walking out of Dustin's graduation party. It was just about 10:45. We walking out. Douglas had just finished mopping the entire gym floor, because you use the rec center, you gotta leave it clean. He said it was cleaner than when we went in. But we were walking out. He was in front of me. Now, mind you, we're all dog that tired, right? He walks out, and instead of holding the door for me to come out, he lets the door go, which I was not prepared for. So the door was basically closing on me. I'm used to him holding it or catching it or something. I didn't catch the door. He didn't hold the door. So the door almost hit me, right? And so everybody behind me was like, "Oh, you almost let the door here. You let the door here." Now, mind you, my feelings hurt because you almost hit me with the door. What? So I felt some kind of way about that. And so he was like, "What? I didn't know y'all. Everybody, what?" He was like, "Y'all just mopped the floor. I'm tired. I wasn't thinking, blah, blah, blah." But that didn't keep me from feeling the way I was feeling about the fact you almost at the door hit me, right? So as the night went on, by the time we get home, yada, 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 you know, he said, "Babe, I'm sorry. I did not realize you was right there. You know, I wouldn't let the door close on you." Okay. It took that. I was feeling some kind of way about that door closing on me, right? But it takes the, hey, I didn't, I was just, okay, you're right. Me too. I was that way too. I'm not going to hold that against you that you almost hit me with the door. Little things. Because that little thing could have turned into the, you know.
If you sit there and let that fester, then that turns
Let it
into
fester.
offense, and
But I do
then
have
we
a
have a whole
question.
biggie
And
And
I
issue.
if
know we
he would
got
have let it fester, if I would have let it fester, then it would have turned into, it
Miss
would
Carter.
have start hitting that quiet, which is called it, the quiet
What
quit.
would you have been okay? Because I mean, we're talking about your husband, and you know your husband. If he had not come back and apologized, because of course you know that he probably didn't mean to do that. If he hadn't said anything, would you have been okay with letting it go, or would you think that you would have brought it up eventually? Said, "Hey, you almost let the door slam on me, bro. What's up with that?"
See, I think I would have said, "You almost let the door, you let the door slam on me," you know. But the thing about it is, I did say that. I said that when we come up, I was like, "You let the door slam on me," you know, blah blah blah. And he went for the, "But I was tired. I didn't mean to," blah blah blah. But then he came back with the, "You know, I didn't mean to do that," you
Gotcha.
know, So we addressed it in the moment.
The reason why I
But
bring that up
yeah,
is because when we're talking about trust and things like that, sometimes we're waiting on apologies from people that we may never get,
exactly.
and
True, true, true.
how does that begin to shape the relationship, and how
Mm-hmm.
does it begin to affect the level of trust? Because sometimes we don't know that we've offended, and then sometimes we think the offended party, the offended
Right,
person expects the other person to know that they've offended you, and
right,
you're waiting on them to address you because you're like, they offended me, so they need to
right.
come and say something to me. Why I got to say something to them? But it
And
also
that
goes
I
back
feel
to
like
what
that's
Nate said
yeah.
earlier. When you look at that scripture, I believe it's in Matthew 15. If you have an alt, it doesn't matter if the alt was done by someone else. You also now have an alt. You have that offense. So why do you have to wait for them to come to you when you could just say, "Hey, you let the door slam on me, and I didn't appreciate that." And they be like, "Oh man,
Right.
I didn't even realize you were behind me.
You realize it.
I'm
Exactly.
sorry."
Right.
But because
Mhm.
nobody says anything, that's when you start that, oh, the trust is broken, and you start moving into what we talked about, withdrawal and all this
Mhm.
other stuff. And you were
Right.
walking around mad, and the person don't even know that they've done
They don't
anything
even
to
know that
You
you.
know
you
they
right,
didn't, bro.
right,
They don't
right.
even know.
Wait,
And you done cut the relationship off, and it's a covenant relationship. You've cut it off, you turn it off, you withdrawn, you start working late, start doing all this other stuff, and your spouse or your significant other, or just even your friend is like, "Man, where you been? I ain't seen you in a while." Tomorrow, I'm
what's
just
going
working,
on?
and you're like, "Well, what's up? What's wrong?" "Ain't nothing, nothing, nothing." But and
Right.
it's like
Exactly.
you think that they supposed to say no. If somebody if
No.
you're offended, because it even says, "And when you are offended," but it's what we do with the offense. Either we become bitter or we become better. And a lot of us choose to be
Mhm.
bitter because we want people to bow down to us and kiss our behinds and come, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't know you was angry," and instead of just saying, "Hey, you know what? You stepped on my foot, bro, and I didn't
Right.
appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
I
Hey, I'm
appreciate
sorry. I
that."
didn't
And
mean that.
it's like, you know
Mhm.
what, man, I didn't even know that. I apologize, man. We cool. I would never do nothing like that to you intentionally, but we waiting on somebody to come and say, "I'm so sorry. I stepped on your foot
Mhm.
yesterday. I didn't know." It might have been in the shuffle. I might have been trying to get by. Might have been a lot of people, and I did it inadvertently. Or like in your husband's case, he was tired. He just got through mopping the floor. Didn't know you were behind him. He left the door closed. But then y'all came back at the night, and you didn't. He
Mhm.
told you what he told you, but then you brought it up again. It was like, "Hey, you let the door close on me," and he was like, "Oh, babe, I'm sorry. That was not my
Right.
intention. I would never intentionally allow the door to slam on you." But
But
so many of
we
us
try
have
not to
broken
let these
relationships
things
and broken trust because we
right.
are waiting on the person who
Right.
offended us to
Mhm.
remember that they offended us from 45 years ago and come back and apologize.
And these are things that the Lord said we're not to carry these things in our heart. We don't have to carry these things over. One of our goals is to not even go to bed with any such things. You know, we're gonna clear up everything from the day. Let's move forward because we don't know what the night will bring.
Because
You
y'all got a
know,
whole lot in chapter 2. Y'all watch the whole episode now.
Right, right. Definitely watch the whole episode. I
Right.
mean, because we covered it though. We literally covered
Listen,
it
chapter
and
2.
some. So
We made it.
yes, so
That's great.
definitely dig into chapter 2 if you so feel like you need to, but really you don't because we gave it to you already. So that being said, we are going to see you guys on the next episode of the Book Chapter and Converse podcast. We out.
We are. Peace. Be blessed, everyone.